Experimentar el sabor auténtico de Guadalajara. Buen provecho.
Juanatos Tacos in Silmar and now on Soledad and Canyon Country inside the old Foster Freeze. Buen provecho.
Your hometown station.
Good afternoon. This is Louie Diaz, one of the co-news directors here at KHTS Radio, and I am joined live in studio with the one and only Mayor Pro Tem Jason Gibbs. How you doing today, sir?
Louie, the dream continues, my man. How are you?
Not too bad. You know, it's Tuesday. It's my Monday. But
Your Monday. You take Mondays off now?
Well, I work Saturdays now.
So what, do you send a memo out saying there's no news that's going to come out Sunday or Monday, so the world just needs to relax?
I wish. No, we're always doing news here at KHTS. Even if it's my day off and something happens, I'm working. So there's a lot going on in the city right now. And there's a lot to talk about.
Sure.
Just to summarize, yesterday there was a press conference to talk about the fentanyl crisis that's hitting the northern Los Angeles County, especially Santa Clarita. And there's also a lot of discussion about Camp Scott and Scudder that's been going on.
Sure.
There was a conference about that I believe it was last Wednesday. So let's start talking about Camp Scott and Camp Scudder.
So we're going to start with uplifting things during this meeting here.
We'll end it on a high note.
Okay,
Don't
all
worry.
right. As long as we get there. All right.
Yeah.
Sure.
So what's the latest with Camp Scott and Camp Scudder? I know people don't want this here. I know it's right in the path of floods if they happen, and it's in a high fire zone.
It is. You know, Lou, just kind of a quick backstory on it. You know, a lot of people wonder where this came from, and Scott, it's been over a year now. And I remember it must have been on a weekend. I just received a random text message that said, "Hey, have you heard about what the county wants to do in repurposing Camp Scott for the, for these new youth?" And I said, "No, I haven't heard anything." And I think it was Nextdoor. It was the Nextdoor app. It was somebody sent a link, and I said, "No, there's nothing here." And I think I sent it over to staff, and they said, "Well, we'll look into it." But no, we haven't heard anything. And it wasn't hours. Wait a minute, there might be something here. And then all of a sudden, it was just like the floodgates open, and we start hearing that the county's in discussions of repurposing Camp Scott for the new violent youth offenders, and changing it up for the new programming. And so the city came out very hard against it from the beginning. And I think it's the RBG subcommittee meetings that they were having where they've been discussing it. We had town halls here. There were town halls in Laverne. There was all kinds of social media discussion about it. But at the end of the day, even though Supervisor Catherine Barger was very much in support with the city on opposing the repurposing of Camp Scott for these new youth, the county ended up voting 4-1 for that. So the city, I can't go into details on it, but we are working litigation to fight it and continue to fight it. But in the meantime, the subcommittee's still meeting, because they had to have discussions about construction and time constraints and how long and how much money. And one of the last public meetings they had, there was discussion that it could be anywhere, I think, for between $40 and $50 million, and they were talking 40 to 50 months, 50 to 60 months of time to actually do it. And they're under kind of a timeline here to figure out where they're going to house these youth. And that's a very long time. So we're hearing concerns now from this subcommittee about whether Camp Scott really is feasible for the amount of work. So what I tell people is you got to keep listening, stay involved, stay engaged. The city staff is, your council is, and we just see where it plays out. And we're just going to keep moving forward with every step we can to oppose it.
So a couple questions off of what you just said. Let's first start here. What is the main concern that the city staff have with Camp Scott and Scudder coming back?
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't say it's city staff. I think the staff works at the behest of what the council wants to see happen, right? Mm-hmm. And the council was very much opposed to this, and I believe the city as a whole was too, because there was no discussion, there was no collaboration. It was just all of a sudden we're hearing rumor that they want to repurpose this area. We have a number of concerns with it. The ones that you mentioned obviously come from more of a CEQA standpoint, where you have a 2-lane road in a very high fire hazard area. You also have the dam that's upstream up there, the Bouquet Dam, and there are concerns of flooding if something were to happen and how fast it would rise. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of the criticism that I see online is, is that really a fair point to make, because you have housing back there and there's new housing projects that have been developed right near the camp. which was one of the big concerns people had, is, the camp is less than 1,000 feet from some homes. And there was a development that was approved back, I believe, in the mid part of 2020 that's directly adjacent to where this camp is. And there's very much a concern of putting, they call them youth. Well, you're talking anywhere from up to 25 years old, but this is violent offenses. This is arson, murder in some cases, severe sexual assaults and rapes. I mean, these are serious crimes. So there was a big concern of just putting them in a community like this, but then you coupled it with CEQA. And so a lot of people had concern saying, well, can you really compare that with people who own their homes in a high flood zone? Well, yeah, you can, because you have all of the disclosures, but it's a much different ballgame if you need to do an evacuation for a prison that is housing violent offenders versus just people needing to get out of their homes in the event of danger.
So has there been discussion with how big Wayside is? Is there any way to build something on the prison facility? I mean, if we have a prison right there, why not utilize it? Even if it's for youth, just keep them in a separate building.
Not that I've heard. There was discussions of a number of different facilities that were brought up throughout the county. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, Camp Scott was picked for the males. And I think, even though it's not being specifically discussed, I think there's always an option down the road if they did that the adjacent Camp Scott in Scudder, that Scudder could be used for that as well. And we've been opposed from that beginning, and we're going to continue to oppose it. Yeah.
Well, and on the same topic of criminals and stuff like that, in other recent news, it was made public that the recall for George Gascon might be coming to a halt. Yeah. It might not make the ballot. It may not have gotten the amount of legit votes that the commission was hoping to get to have it on the November ballot. With that being said, what does that mean to us here in Santa Clarita, and what can this council or the city do to help move forward? Because I know our city council was one of the first to vote. It was the first to vote no confidence in him.
Yes, we were. And, advocation is probably the number one tool that we really do have. And, we'll couple that in, I think, with discussions about the sheriff's department. But what you have now is a revolving door for different types of crimes. And you're seeing recidivism continue to rise. You're seeing what feels like a revolving door with no bail policies, with the release policies, just given from any number of things. And so the DA took a stance as soon as he got elected. He released his memos of all of these different things, including never to go after the death penalty, never trying 17-year-old youth who commit heinous crimes as adults. And so you're seeing all of these actions that he's taking coming into play, and it affects our community because it puts our sheriff's department in a bad place, because while they're working hard to keep crime off the streets, criminals are literally just getting released right back. Sometimes you get a 48-hour hold, sometimes you get 72-hour holds, but then they're right back on the streets. And so we're just having it's very unfortunate that the recall didn't go through. In my opinion, I think the council was supportive of it. But that is also the process. And unfortunately, there was a large number of signatures gathered that the county had deemed were inaccurate, or they weren't registered voters. They had the wrong addresses per their registration. Just a number of issues, and it was a fairly large number that got them below the threshold needed to pull on the ballot. Yeah. So I think they may have one other option to try and fight it, if you will, to keep it on the ballot, but I haven't heard any details on where they're at with it or if it'll be successful or not. But in the meantime, we'll continue to oppose those policies that are hurting this community.
So over the last couple months, as support was growing for a recall, we saw that the DA in San Francisco was recalled successfully.
It was.
Was there a sense of optimism that you saw amongst the deputies in the sheriff's station as a whole? And since the announcement of Gascon possibly not facing a recall election, have you seen any kind of discouragement amongst deputies, or are they just staying the same and just going to do what they can do to help keep people off the street, even if it's only for the 48 hours that it may be?
Sure. I mean, I have not. And, I can tell you our relationship with Captain Diaz is phenomenal. And what he has done through all of this, that he did during the pandemic, and we're dealing now with the DA, is his number one job is law enforcement. and they are here to protect our community, regardless of what the district attorney chooses to do with prosecutions. That's the DA's role, and his role as our captain and our deputies are out here just working for our community. When there are people committing crimes, they are responding, they are working on our behalf, and as far as I've seen, they're continuing to do it, and quite frankly, they've done a phenomenal job.
Yeah.
And we're going to continue to support them, and we thank them every day for being here for us.
Just today, they 30 minutes ago, maybe 40 minutes ago, they just announced too that they made an arrest in that incident involving that kid where he was tackled and held down.
Oh yeah, that had a lot of social media action on it. There was the son of somebody I'd consider a friend, and it's horrifying to see.
Yeah,
it's horrifying to see.
Through their work, they got that guy in custody. So one last downer, and then we're gonna move on to something better.
All right,
but like just to tie into what you were saying, the sheriff's working with you to help the community and become a safer place. On that note, fentanyl's been a very hot topic.
Yes, it has.
The sheriff's announced. They told me, Brandon Dean, one of the captain for the Narcotics Bureau, who was one of the speakers at yesterday's press conference at Action Drug Rehab, told me on Thursday that Santa Clarita was just about tied for number one with the AV for the most fentanyl overdoses reported in all of the patrolled parts of LA County by the Sheriff's Department.
Yeah.
Which is shocking because, again, this is awesome town, right?
Yeah.
What is the city doing to help work alongside the sheriffs to help try to bring this crisis to an end?
Sure. If I can, Lou, fentanyl, my father was an anesthesiologist for years. And I remember when fentanyl was first starting to be discussed in the news, even he was terrified of it. You're talking about an opioid that's 60 to 100 times stronger than things like heroin. Mm-hmm. And what's even scarier is I was there at the conference yesterday, and hats off to KHTS for putting that together and having such incredible speakers like the congressman and the sheriff and our captain. I think the president of the Heart Board was there, and our mayor were all there speaking about this issue. This is a huge issue. And during that press conference, my own wife had just randomly sent me a text, and it was talking about how fentanyl is getting laced in with what looks like common candies and just colorful candies. And fentanyl is extremely deadly, and it is terrifying how easy it is and how cheap it is and how much there is that's coming into America and getting into our products. But all that being said, it's great that the community is seeing this, that our elected officials see this and are taking it seriously and are fighting. One of the big things that the city's always done, for instance, it started back probably about 10 years ago, was the Drug-Free Youth in Town program, and now it's called I think we call it the DeFi and SCV program for drug-free youth in the Santa Clarita Valley. And more important than anything, along with collaborating with the LA County Fire, with the school districts and the Hart District and the Saugus districts, it's about education. It's about advocacy. So growing up, I think we had the DARE program, right? Drug abuse resistance education. It was about teaching and alerting kids and families and parents to what is out there and what's happening and just how serious it is and how it's being accessed. And I don't think we really give it enough credit, but today kids, we all have phones. We all have smartphones, and we all have access to information and social media at our fingertips. And I think Kerry Quashen mentioned it first thing yesterday during the press conferences. When you wake up in the morning, the first thing you do, you pull your phone out, and you're looking at news, and you're looking at your social media. Same thing when you go to bed.
Yep, I do it daily.
Daily.
What happened last night?
That's right. So you have access to all this all the time. And so beside from the education advocacy for DeFi, I do want to bring up one very specific thing that's happening. We're going to be having the 2022 Parent Resource Symposium. So I'd encourage all parents to be there, and it's called Chasing the High. And it'll be on Friday, September 23rd, right at City Hall. The fair itself begins at 5:30, and a presentation begins at 6. There will be Spanish translation available. We'll also stream it like we do on the city's Facebook page. And it's all about talking about prescription drug abuse and strategies to help children cope with the many pressures that they face in school, that we see in the media, and that they're dealing with online. And experts will specifically discuss what's going on with fentanyl and that crisis in the SCV, and just how dangerous this drug is being laced in everything. I mean, laced from everything from marijuana to Xanax.
Yep.
And so the speakers will have the mayor will be there. Mayor Lorene West will be there. Or Captain Diaz will be speaking. Members of our J team, the juvenile intervention team, and the MET team, the mental evaluation team, will all be there. So please, everybody, I encourage you to come. Again, that's September 23rd, a Friday. The resource at 5:30 with a presentation at 6. And you can learn more at defyinscv.com. DFYINSCV.com/parent-engagement to get more information on it.
That's awesome. Well, again, this is Louie Diaz sitting here live in Newhall with Jason Gibbs, Mayor Pro Tem of the Santa Clarita Valley. And as I promised, Mr. Gibbs, we're going to end on a little bit lighter note here.
Lighter. Okay, I'm ready.
What's up with what's coming up in the Santa Clarita Valley? I know that you guys are doing cinema in the parks. I know concerts in the parks is still happening. It's coming to an end. But what can we look forward to for fun events coming up in the Santa Clarita Valley?
We still got concerts in the park going, and cinema in the park you mentioned. I know we're going to be closing that up here in the next couple weeks. And I think Goonies is going to be the last movie. Still an absolute fan favorite of mine. You mentioned it before we got on here. Boots and Brews is coming back, and I think Brad Paisley is going to be headlining it. I think that's September 3rd, maybe.
I believe so. I believe it's the Saturday before Labor Day.
So you got Boots and Brews coming. Hopefully the heat's going to start turning down a little bit as we move into the fall and get ready for some of our big fall celebrations, and always getting ready for the Christmas time and the winter time and decking up Main Street. But from a much grander scale, we're going to start seeing all the projects that we've kind of lined up through our capital improvement project. We just did the budget before we went on hiatus. The city had, I think, just over $80 million for capital improvement projects. And, we're going to be seeing the discussion of a brand new regional draw bike park up in the Saugus, Bouquet Canyon area.
Oh, nice.
They're still working on it. I know the mayor's super excited about this. The roller rink coming over there by the Aquatic Center, the design and build of that. So there's always just lots of amazing and good things going on. I encourage everybody to visit the city's website, come check out some of the entertainment and some of the events, and we'll hope to see you at them.
Well, Jason, thank you so much for coming and talking about stuff that's going on in the Santa Clarita Valley. And for all news Santa Clarita, you can visit our website, hometownstation.com. You can follow us on our social media at KHTS Radio, and keep it tuned in to 98.1 FM and AM 1220.
Your hometown station, KHTS.